Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. Today I am going to be talking about which Morphe palette should you buy. I'm going to be focusing on the three most recent and largest palettes that they have released. I'm going to be talking about the 3502, the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette, and the 39A Holiday Edition palette. So Morphe has rebranded recently. They've also improved their formula. So I do know that they are working on improving their brand, their appearance, and their formulas and everything like that. So I'm going to take a couple minutes for each palette and go through and show you in-depth swatches and give you my opinion on the palette, sort of summing each one up. And then I'm going to go in-depth more into what I think of each palette and what I would recommend for you guys. So let's start with the 3502. So they're called 35 palettes because they have 35 eyeshadows in them. I'll put the price right here on the screen. This is the second edition of their 350 palette. I do have the first one right here. So here's the first one, and you can see very similar. This one was a huge hit, really popular, everyone loved it, so they came out with a second edition. So I feel like there are pros and cons to each of these. Particularly this one is missing a black, this one is missing lighter shades. You know, you have the lighter shades in this one and the black in this one. This one has more of those bright red, orange shades. This one has some of those bright shades, but not quite as many. And then the neutrals in this one are warmer, whereas they're more neutral, not all warm. They're more neutral toned in this one. I also do feel like the formula is better in these. I feel like they blend better, they're creamier, they're more pigmented, and just easier to work with in general in this one. That being said, generally I don't need a palette to have everything that I need for a complete look. Generally, I don't care. Like, I'm not gonna downgrade a palette if it doesn't have that. The only thing is, there are so many shades in this palette and it's so large that, like, if I do travel with this, I'm not gonna wanna bring 2 or 3 eyeshadow palettes. Normally, I don't mind using 2 or 3 eyeshadow palettes in a look, but if I have one palette that has 35 shades, I'm gonna expect it to have everything that I need. That's just the way I feel. So it's not saying that I'll never use a palette that doesn't have everything I need that has 35 shades, but I would prefer for it to. If it's like a 12 pan palette and it doesn't have, say, like the black, or it doesn't have like a brow bone shade, that's okay. It could still get an A+, but if it's a 35 pan palette that doesn't have a brow bone shade, it's probably going to get downgraded a little bit. So as you could probably guess, I am wearing a bunch of these shadows today from this palette. I am wearing the orange all over my lid, and then I combined that with a little bit of this one, and then also some other stuff from other palettes, so I'll get to all that in as I get to those palettes. I use these 2 transition shades to kind of start off my look and create that gradient. I have to say the matte neutral shades in this palette are absolutely fantastic. I really love them. I think they did an amazing job picking them out. I do feel like there's a few too many dark reddish browns, you know. We could have traded a couple of those in for a couple of lighter shades, but that's just my opinion. But as you can see in the swatches, these shimmer shades are so beautiful and so amazing. So pretty. And it's interesting, this orange one and the red one too have a slight, like, gritty feel to them. I don't think they look gritty and they don't look chunky, but they have a different feel to them, almost like they're just so intense that you can just feel that pigmentation in there, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm gonna go ahead and recommend this one if you are a neutral lover and you are a warm tone lover. If this is your calling, these are the shadows that you gravitate towards and you prefer to wear on a daily basis, then this is the palette for you. If you are someone like me and you like to venture out and wear more colors on a daily basis, or you don't have like a go-to look, you just like to experiment all the time, this might not be the palette for you if you are looking for just one Morphe palette. This is a great one and I definitely recommend it. If you want to buy all 3, you know, or all of them, then totally buy it. But if you're like, which one, there's like, I can only buy one, which one should I buy? Unless you are like, these are all the colors that I want to wear ever, or these are all the colors that I need in my collection that I don't have, unless you're like that, then maybe pass on this one. I also do have the 350M, which is the 350 original, all in the matte shades. I really like this one too. I don't use it as much, you can probably tell, just because I usually want some shimmers in my look, so I reach for one of the other ones. But if you are into all mattes, this is a good one. Okay, next let's talk about the Jaclyn Hill palette. So this is a 35 pan palette that Jaclyn Hill curated with Morphe. Jaclyn Hill handpicked all of the colors. She created them, like she came up with them in her mind and made them happen in this palette. So it's not just Morphe shadows that already existed, she did create them. Therefore it costs a little bit more money. So as you can see, this one one ventures more on the colorful side of things. This one has more, some blues, some greens, some purples, really fun colors, and then again a ton of your neutral warm shades that are all the rage right now. This one also has the black in there and some lighter shades up here. Now for me personally, I can get a complete look with this palette generally. I mean, there are a few shades that I wish were a little bit different. I wish this one was a little more warm and more golden, but I can get a complete look with this. But I do know that people with lighter skin tones have complained that there are no matte cream shades or matte beige shades. I can use this one as a base shade on my skin tone. That works fine for me, but I know that lighter people would prefer maybe one of these to be matte or to just have a matte cream shade in here. So I want to mention that. I don't need that, but I know a lot of people do prefer that. When I was first reviewing this palette, I said I wish there was a bright gold, but honestly this one right here called Queen is pretty close to a bright gold. Let me swatch a couple more. I'm gonna swatch Hunts, because this is a beautiful one. Let's swatch Sissy. There's so many pretty shades in here. So that just goes to show you how beautiful these shades are. They swatch really nicely. I feel like this is a good palette if you are looking to spark your own creativity and you are more of a neutral lover. Like if you are someone who always wears warm neutrals or just neutrals, but you want to get into color a little bit, this is a great palette because you could just get into color with like a pop of this one on the outer V, you know, to kind of brighten things up, just like cranberry shade, or you could put one of these fun ones on the lower lash line. But if you don't use color every day, you're not going to be wasting your money because most of the shades in here are neutral. You can also get some fun glam looks, just a ton of looks. I mean, there's a ton of tutorials on this palette out there on the internet. I can link a few of my favorites below from people that I really love. Valerie Pack has a really good one. Babs Beauty has a really nice one. I will link a few of my favorite tutorials with this palette below so that you guys can see. And Jaclyn Hill, of course, has done some tutorials with it as well. But yeah, so I think this one is nice for if you're kind of in between in the neutral zone, like you want to get into more colors some days but most days you don't, or something like that, because there are some really fun colors in here but also a lot of really fun neutrals. You're not forced to use colors if you don't want to. So that's my opinion on this one. And I am wearing this green from this palette a little bit on my lower lash line, and then probably could get a similar look to what I have with these blues, but I'm actually wearing shades from the next palette that I'm going to talk about on my lower lash line as well. And the last palette I want to talk about is the 39A Extremely Glary Dare to Create Holiday palette. So this is a 39 pan palette, and this one I will put the price here on the screen. Holy cow, this one is so beautiful. This one barely even fits with me on the screen. It's a lot bigger. Let me hold it up. So this is compared to the Jaclyn Hill palette, and then 35 palettes are about the same size as the Jaclyn Hill palette. So this one is a lot bigger. This one actually doesn't fit in my drawers, any of the drawers that I store makeup in, unless I put it, you know, this way, which I don't like to do because then it stacks and I forget about the stuff on the bottom. So I've been storing this one like out here, just kind of like up there, so that, because that's the only place I can put it, kind of like my Kat Von D palette. So anyways, this one is huge. That was my point. Now you can tell just by looking at this palette that this is going to be for the color lover. These 7 shades here are actually meant to be transition shades, base shades, neutral blending shades, that kind of a thing. The middle row is made a little bit larger with the idea that the transition shades are going to be the shades that we use more often. And I do use these every time I've used this palette, regardless of what colors I'm using. I use some of these neutrals. So it's kind of a cool idea that they were bigger. And that was one of the things that drew me to this palette, was just the design, the layout, these shades being a little bit bigger with transition shades in mind, and then just all of the colors. You know, I love that they're just like, okay, these are your transition shades and the rest we're just going to give you a bunch of colors. I do feel like, again, we could have a couple less dark browns. For some reason, I always feel that way in a palette. I feel like it's nice to have a variety, don't get me wrong, but these two are really similar. These two are extremely similar. These two are pretty similar. And then with these already, I just don't feel like you need that many dark browns. So I would prefer, and what I feel like this palette is lacking is, again, those light base shades and also some light brow bone, inner corner highlighting shades. There's absolutely no light shades in this palette, and I have, you know, I have the skin tone that I have medium skin tone, and so I can make a lot of shades that people with fair skin tones couldn't make work. I can make those work for inner corner, but I really can't make any of these shades work in my inner corner. There's really nothing. I thought this blue maybe would be nice for inner corner, but it's even a little bit too dark for me, for my preferences, in my opinion. This one again looks like it might be nice, but it's a little bit too dark. So this palette, for sure, I need to bring in at least one other shade to make a complete look. However, this is a limited edition holiday palette, so I don't think that they were necessarily going for it to be a complete look. I think that it's okay that this isn't. I think this is definitely more about the colors, the color selection, getting into your creativity. I mean, it's called Dare to Create, so it's supposed to be really like a daring, sort of edgy palette that you want if you are trying to get outside your comfort zone, or if you just are creative and you want some fun colors. My arm is getting tired. You know, if you just want some fun colors to play with and to kind of get outside your box, this is an amazing palette. This one does have the black in it, which is really nice. It just doesn't have enough light shades for me. Again, like I said, this one, these two are both fine base shades. Just when it comes to brow bone highlight, like today, I'm actually not even wearing a Morphe shadow for my brow bone highlight because none of these palettes had the one that I wanted. I started with the one from the Jaclyn Hill palette, and then I didn't like the shade. Like I said, it wasn't warm enough, so I actually went in with the new ShanXO and BH Cosmetics eyeshadow palette. I forget what it's called, but it's like the golden highlighter shade in that palette that I use on my brow bone because none of the shadows in these Morphe palettes worked for that. Anyways, that's besides the point. Now let's talk about which one you should buy if you only want to buy one. It's going to depend on what you already have in your collection, what you use on a daily basis, and what you want more of. So let's say you have all neutral palettes in your collection, then I would say, well, you should maybe get the Jaclyn Hill palette so that you can have some more colors, or you should maybe get the Dare to Create palette so that you can have a lot of colors. But if you don't use colors ever, then there's no point. If you use colors once in a while, I would recommend the Jaclyn Hill palette. But if you don't ever use them, then maybe there's no point in getting any of them, you know? I want to make that point really clear, especially in these three palettes that I'm focusing on. The quality of the shadows is phenomenal for the price. So my personal favorite, the one that I've been reaching for the most, is the Dare to Create palette. I love the colors, I love the creativity that it inspires in me, but I do, like I said, I do often use this with other palettes. I don't mind using other palettes when I do my makeup in general. I don't mind it because it's just fun to be even more creative, you know, to take two palettes and kind of be like, okay, like how can I mix this color scheme with this color scheme? It's really fun for me and I love doing that, so I don't mind that. But if we're talking about a palette that I would maybe travel with or have pretty much everything in it that I need, that would probably be the Jaclyn Hill palette. If I had to pick one palette to be my everything, it just unfortunately could not be this one. I mean, I don't want to say there's no way, like I obviously could put these shadows on my eyes and then we have a complete look, you know, I'd survive. But it's just not how I would prefer to create a complete look with these shadows. So I would say the Jaclyn Hill would have to be for that one because the 3502, again, doesn't have any of those light shades. Like, it's really pretty, and this one is really pretty, and this one is on my inner corner, but it's really chunky, so it's not quite fine enough for like the brow bone or something like that. And a lot of times I like my brow bone highlight and my face highlight to be the same, and this is definitely too chunky for face highlight. I feel like I'm talking about highlight a lot. Like, it's not that important, you know? I don't know, I'm sorry about that. Another thing I like about the Jaclyn Hill palette is that it has some sort of duochromy, especially this pink one called Sissy is a little bit duochromy. It has this nice gold shade that comes out, Queen comes out really gold, and then beautiful deep like orangey Hunts shade, but then you're also purpley shade. Really any kind of slightly colorful neutral look, so like a purpley neutral smoky look, a red neutral smoky look, an orange smoky look, a mustardy yellow smoky look, you know, like a pukey brown smoky look, like any of those neutral slightly colored looks you can get with this palette. It's amazing for that. I love this green, these dark greens, these dark shades are really nice. We have really like cool tone brown, purple, whatever. I feel like I'm babbling now. Also, I forgot to mention on my lower lash line, what I ended up doing was I took that green that you saw from the Jaclyn Hill palette, and then I took this green and I just lined it with this green, and I think it looks kind of blue, which is kind of cool, but it's really green. So it was this bright shimmery green, and then I took a pop of the gold from the 3502 palette that I put on my inner corner, and I put that right on the center of my lower lash line here. So I really like the way that turned out. Again, you guys, these palettes just inspire so much creativity in me. They're really great. I love having 35 or 39 colors to choose from. It really just lets the creativity kind of loose and gets those creative juices flowing, if you know what I mean. Don't ever feel like you're limited to one palette though. Don't ever feel like you're limited to any type of look. Like, don't feel like you have to have shimmers on the inner corner or the brow bone or whatever, you know. You don't have to have a dark outer V. You don't have to do anything. Like, I don't really have a dark outer V today. I don't really care. You know what I mean? You can do whatever you want with makeup, and that's the point of it. It's supposed to be fun and creative and creatively inspiring for you. That is the whole point. So make sure that you are always having fun with whatever you do. All right. I will link all of these palettes in the description box below if you guys are interested in any of them. Please let me know any questions you have on anything in the comment section, and I will be happy to answer those for you. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and until next time, I'll talk to you guys again very soon. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys. Bye!